Why do you think that the green movement, environmentalists, have not made the link between patriarchy and the environment? In your experience, have you tried to argue with them and explain that we can't have a planet and patriarchy, and have you got anywhere? Is there anything that helps when you try to discuss it with them? So maybe if we ask Lierre first and go around again.
Well, my answer to that was to start my own organization because it was just unbearable. So, after we wrote the book Deep Green Resistance, we then started a group called that, and we now have like 500 members around the world, which is pretty cool. But we have really basic radical feminist principles that you have to agree to first before you can join. So we have kind of a slice of sort of the cream of the crop. This is people, both men and women, who get the link already. So I don't have to have those fights anymore. But otherwise, I don't know. I mean, you're up against what you're up against always with men. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to know about it. They don't want to question, their prerogatives and their entitlements. And it's just an endless battle with them.
But that's interesting that you can, if you have a constitution or some rules that they need to sign up to, that any member needs to sign up to, which is based on radical feminism, then you're saying that it's possible to work with men in deep green resistance on this other issue, and they're not undermining it because of their patriarchal views. So it's a sort of basis from which you can do environmental work.
I mean, we're like a little magnet. We attract the men who already understand this, whether they have the language for it or not. They already get that it's destroying their souls and destroying the planet to be dominators. And so they're really, really happy to come out of other groups and join us, because we don't do that. And the men really do hold each other to account. They don't let them, behave like this. So it's a really nice little community, honestly. I never really, if you had told me 20 years ago I'd be friends with men, I wouldn't have believed it. But some of them have really become my friends and my comrades. And it's nice. It's nice to know that it's possible. I'm not saying anybody else has to do it, but it can be done.
Yeah, it's good, and it's a sort of way forward. It's possibly a solution for working a way to that you can work with men, that they've got it working reasonably well or very well in deep green resistance. So let's go to Susan. How about you? Did you ever try to work with men on environmental stuff, or women who are very pro patriarchy?
No, I gave up on that before I could start. And I think I did vote for the Greens for many years because I wanted their policies. I thought their policies on the environment were much better than Labor, which is caught in a terrible spiral, a negative spiral, I think, about jobs, which means more mines, more factory, more industrialisation, all of that stuff. So Labor is captured there. But the Greens, it's probably been about the last 10 years or so that the Greens were first captured by the prostitution, the sex work lobby, because in Victoria, in Australia, prostitution has been legal since 1984. So that became seen as a progressive thing to do, to support the women who were involved in the sex industry without actually questioning anything, without looking at what the real conditions for women are. And then more recently, they've really taken on the whole postmodern queer transgender ideology. And I know there are people within the Greens, I know, who are really annoyed about this, but they don't have any say. And they just have arguments all the time. But one group that was set up back in the 80s was FinRage. FinRage was the Feminist International Network of Resistance to Reproductive and Genetic Engineering. And Farida Akhtar was a member of that, Maria Mies, Renata Klein, and many, many others. And in that group, they brought together issues around women's bodies, but they also talked about the environment. So for Farida's work in communities in Bangladesh about dowry-free and pesticide-free, they always saw the connection between how women were treated and how the earth was treated. And I don't think, it's possible for men to see that, But I think, like Lierre, it's best to set up your own groups and maybe coalesce, you know, if there are groups nearby one another, bring them together. But I think that's the only way to do it. And Finrage became a really strong international group. They produced lots and lots of books and lots of conferences and all sorts of things. So it's possible to do that if you just get out and do it.
Thanks so much, Susan. So let's go back to Kate for just a couple more words, if possible.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think that you know, I'm not involved in an environmental group other than the DGR. I kind of hang on to the coattails of that. But on the river, I've been, you know, since I've been boating, I've been chucked out of every group because of being an evil TERF. So, you know, the men just throw me out. There's, you know, and the women, actually, some of the women as well. I'm just a bigot, according to them. So it's impossible to get anywhere to even begin. But look, I wanted to say something about a woman called Evelyn Fox Keller, who's a science writer. And she's written some really interesting stuff about biology and genetics, and you might not have been aware of. She wrote a biography as well of this amazing woman called A Feeling for the Organism, about a woman who was genius, groundbreaking woman whose name escapes me right now. So the thing is about Evelyn Fox Keller is that she has tried to convey to the layperson the kind of thinking that we need to create and become familiar with in order to understand the complexities of the interrelationships between genetics, biology, and the environment. And look, you know, it's dialectical, but it's even sort of more nuanced and difficult than that. It's not simple, and it's not causative. It's not, you know, this produces this and therefore, you know, it's not linear, right? And I think a lot of us are sadly I certainly am lacking in our skills in being able to engage with complex debates like the one we need to have about human society and the environment, because our thinking skills are so antiquated and inadequate.